Hello and welcome to another edition of Invest and You, a program brought to you by the Invest Dominica Authority. I'm your host, Kimani St. Now, the Invest Dominica Authority, or the IDA, is the Investment Promotion and Facilitation Agency for the government of Dominica. And today we want to speak particularly about the service industry and more specifically business services. And to do that, I have with me two esteemed gentlemen who will be joining me on today's program. Managing Director of Campbell's Labeling and Packaging Company Limited, located in Canefield, Mr. Cedric Phillip. Welcome.
Good day.
And also we have with us IDA's Investment Services Officer, Mr. Cheyenne Monell.
Thank you. Good morning.
Welcome to the program, guys. So we're going to get right into the conversation today, talking about the service industry and, as I said, more specifically, business services. So Cheyenne, I'm going to start with you and just tell us a little bit more about Invest Dominica Authority and its roles and functions as it relates to the general development of Dominica.
Rightfully, you said Invest Dominica is the government branch responsible for facilitating and promoting investments in Dominica. That is primarily what we do. And this allows IDA to be the one-stop shop for investment information for investing in Dominica.
Right.
Invest Dominica currently has two operating departments. First is the Investor Services Unit. That's the unit that I belong to. And the Investment Promotional Unit.
Right.
They are more involved with the promotion of Dominica and its sustainable industries and promoting Dominica as a sustainable investment destination. But I'll tell you more about what Invest Dominica does on a whole. We are under the Ministry of Finance and Investments. And the authority works in collaboration with the private sector. Mm-hmm. Although we are an investment agency under the government of Dominica, we work on behalf of or to the benefit of the private sector, right, so to say. Right. Some of our key functions, we advocate for a lot of policy in terms of improving the business environment in Dominica. So, for example, if we've identified an industry that is underperforming or needs some boosting or policy in order to improve the functioning of the industry, we can do the relevant research and make viable recommendations to the government, of course, to the benefit of both the government and the private sector. Mm. So we do a lot of policy work in that regard. We also formulate strategies and programs to promote Dominica as an investment, sustainable investment destination. And we execute those strategies through the help of other government agencies and private sector agencies as well. Okay. We provide information to investors and prospective investors. So it's not just folks who have already invested in Dominica, but folks who are looking to invest or considering Dominica as an investment destination. Mm-hmm. And we also guide them in terms of the legalities. What are the legal procedures that you have to go through to establish. We can also give you financial advice, putting into Dominica, as well as the industry regulations, so to say. Right. We have a pretty good database of information. So we are able to guide investors on the available opportunities in Dominica, the relevant sectors and the relevant joint partnerships, if possible, as well as a host of other work. As well as liaising with other government agencies and establishing procedures for applications to apply for concessions, which we provide on behalf of the government of Dominica. as well as a host of other.
Yes.
It's too much to mention in my
a host
opinion.
of other things. So pretty much, when it comes to doing business in Dominica,
Yes.
Invest Dominica Authority is the place to go for that sort of information.
I always tell
and
folks.
facilitation.
We should be your first stop, at least, to get the information that pertains to your business and how to establish and operate.
Right.
We may not be able to do everything for you, but at least we can guide you to the people who can assist you
Right.
in your operation.
And to make it clear, it's not only for persons outside of Dominica who want to invest in
Right.
Dominica, but it's also for Dominicans who want to,
especially for Dominicans.
Especially for Dominicans. So let's go into a little bit more specifics in terms of you and your role at the IDA.
The question is, what don't I do?
Yeah.
But, excuse me, primarily I function as an investment and business consultant. Okay? So, let's just say Cedric wants to establish a new business in Dominica. He can come to us and he can discuss his ideas or his plans for his new business.
Right.
Or if he already has a business and he just wants to expand, he can do the same thing. Come to us and have a word with us to discuss his plans. We also do a lot of processing of fiscal incentives.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, you need assistance to establish your business or expand your business. We will process the fiscal incentives on behalf of the government of Dominica so that you can operate efficiently and effectively. And we do a lot of aftercare services. So even after you've been approved, after you've been established as a business and gotten your fiscal incentives and you are already operating, we still check back up with you. We still work with and work with and help our clients to ensure that their business operations are successful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Make sure that you also have the necessary licenses and in working in proper regulation with the government of Dominica.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
We also assist in policy development. I mentioned that before.
Yes.
When I say policy development, so for example, some time ago, we realized that the manufacturing sector was somewhat underperforming. So Invest Dominica took the initiative in collaboration with the Dominica Manufacturers Association to do some research to determine what were the downfalls in manufacturing in Dominica. Where did we fall short?
Right.
And how we can address that. In collaboration with the DMA, we met with both the government aspect of it as well as the private sector, and we developed a policy, or draft policies to address the relevant issues. IDEA took the lead on that. We've also worked on the tourism master plan as well as a few other relevant policies adopted by the government for the benefit of the private sector, as well as a host of other initiatives. Mm-hmm. For example, I worked with the Manufacturers Association to help local agro-processors get assistance through the BAM program that was coordinated by the NAO. Through that, they were able to get significant equipment, machinery, technical training, and
right.
things of that nature. Right. So these are along the lines of work that I do. Yes,
and that the IDA does.
IDA does as an
yes.
investment services officer.
Wonderful. So Cedric, we're going to move to you.
Mm-hmm.
You are part owner of Campbell's Labeling and Packaging Company that's located in Canefield, right?
Mm-hmm.
Part of the IDA's responsibility, as you said, also is promotion. Mm-hmm. So we're going to allow you to give us a little bit more insight in terms of what your company does, more about your company.
Okay. Campbell's Labeling and Packaging Company Limited was formed somewhere in 2014. And the dream was that to meet a need locally in terms of the labeling and packaging of locally manufactured goods, specifically agro-processing and processing for the pharmaceutical market. And it is a wholly owned subsidiary of Campbell's Business Machines, and it was formed in part due to the the advice from the IDA.
Right.
In terms of the best way to, in order to get the incentives that we needed to set the company up. Like I'm not sure if I said this, but it is a wholly owned subsidiary of Campbell's Business Machines. Yeah. So that is what our aim is now. We are not operating to full capacity. We still have a number of very huge barriers that we need to cross since the passage of the hurricane.
Right.
But we have been able to continue to service our main customers in Dominica for labels.
Right.
Yeah.
And as you said, it's almost like it's through the advice of the IDA that you're able to establish a business
separate company. Right.
Providing that service.
Right.
So how does it feel at this point in terms of seeing that that business unfold?
Well, it is a dream. It is a dream that we realized that one of the problems that we are physically, the physical reality of Dominica is that we are agricultural.
Right.
That is where our strengths and our natural gifts lie.
Right.
And that in order for us to really take advantage of that, we can no longer just export the raw materials for somebody else to process.
Right.
We need to find a way to process it ourselves.
Right.
And in order to process it ourselves in this world of globalization, really, you need to have proper information. And being able to get that done easily, and it's a game changer for a lot of companies.
Yes.
You don't have to deal with overseas companies and wait long periods of time and basically not be in control of the process because you're hundreds of miles away in another country, that it occurs right here.
Yeah, and packaging is important, labeling is important, or in presenting your products.
In presenting our products, yes. So we continue to service, but we are working on basically putting everything back together. We're sort of halfway there, but it is a huge undertaking. Maria did deal us a severe blow.
Yes.
But we continue to service, and we will, by this time next year, be able to say that we've now restored the full package of services that we offered, and to take it from there again and start looking at our exports, as we were doing previous to Maria, to actually have people come from outside of Dominica to purchase the services from us.
Yes, that would be interesting. That would be great. So Shiny, if you could just we spoke about packaging and labeling, how important it is in terms of how our products are being presented, and the collaboration between the IDA and the new company to fill that gap in Dominica. Just expound on the significance of this.
Highly significant.
Yeah.
I mean, we spoke about the impact, or we mentioned the impact to the manufacturers, particularly the agro-processors. But we have to realize that a lot of the agro-processors in Dominica are cottage industry.
Right.
Very small, operating from their kitchens or their backyards or their basements, things of that nature. But they have exceptional products. These products need to be presented in the same quality as the product itself. Attractive.
Because when you can't taste it, you can't smell it,
you can't see it first.
Right, but the packaging is what will draw you.
To draw you to.
Yes.
Now, when you have these small businesses with very limited financial resources, a lot of them had to go to Trinidad or Barbados or the other countries that produce labeling and packaging for bigger companies, and their minimum order requirements were much higher than the smaller companies that we have here.
Yes.
So with Campbell's now, Campbell's is able to produce any amount of packaging or labeling that you need. I would believe there is no minimum.
I mean, there is no minimums, but there are barriers to purchasing minimums in terms of the pricing.
Right.
But being here locally and being able, for example, to use certain strategies to pool orders.
Right.
For example, you may have 3 people come to you and say, I would like a label for my coconut cheese,
Right.
for example. But each of them has a different size label.
Yes.
So you say, okay, let's do this. Let us all make the labels one size. Let's agree on this. So that when I put your orders through, you get the benefit of one run, even though they're different design, but it's the size that really matters.
Yes.
So those are that's just one example of the kinds of things that you can do when you can do the labels locally to make it
more accessible.
more accessible.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait for shipping, you don't have to pay duties for your labels to come in, those sorts of
And
things.
you're in control of the process.
Right.
For example, we go to print and we may say, okay, come in and have a look at what we got. That's not something you can do.
Yes. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So, just tell us a little bit more. I mean, I know you've said that you had the challenge of Hurricane Maria, but in terms of the future, your plans for growth and expansion of the company.
Well, there were other things that we did besides the packaging and the labeling, which sort of filled up the rest of the services that we needed. Because in addition to that, you needed to be able to produce signage for your customers. You needed to be able to produce marketing materials, other kinds of marketing materials.
Right.
So that has been up and running. And then we were in an advanced stage of basically doing the repairs on the other things that needed to do for the labeling. And then we had an opportunity to develop one other aspect of it, which we decided to do. And thanks to COVID, we had to leave because borders were closed. And just when we were going to go into doing the final set of repairs on the labeling machine, and borders closed. So we're
rather unfortunate challenges to deal with.
But we're still able to service people who need the labels.
The labels.
We're actively doing that. We have some rather large customers, some of the larger agro processors in the state. Where we're able to service them, and we're right now just looking forward to that time when we can get the people in to do the necessary work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very, very informative. I hope that you've been learning quite a bit of what the IDA does in Dominica. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll be right back. welcome back to Invest and You. That's a program brought to you by the Invest Dominica Authority. I'm Kimani St, and we are here with Managing Director of Campbell's Packaging and Labeling Company Limited, Mr. Cedric Phillip, and also from the Invest Dominica Authority, Mr. Cheyenne Monell. So welcome back. We've been talking about investing in Dominica. We've been talking about the service industry and particularly business services. So we're just going to continue the conversation and touch on a little bit about the challenges that the new company, well, fairly new company, Campbell's Labeling and Packaging Company faces as it relates to providing that service to businesses in Dominica.
Businesses, yeah. Well, one of the biggest challenges that we had, forget about obviously the hurricane and so on, but one of the biggest challenges we had was that we had a lot of people who were producing small quantities of things that they needed to sell. And it was kind of a challenge trying to convince them, you know, just to, what if all the people who make coconut cheese, right, got together and decided that they were going to standardize on their packaging. They were going to produce a product made in Dominica that could go places where they on their own couldn't go.
Right.
Just imagine, say for example, a banana industry, or a hotel, or hotels without the umbrella association to really assist and to find funding so they can do things.
Right.
So it's stuff like that, actually getting people together, small producers, because really it's a lot of small producers, to get together under an umbrella organization which can do things that the individuals could not do for themselves. And I think that is the challenge for the future.
Major challenge.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as much of a major challenge as we think. It just requires a slight change of attitude. And then I think the economic benefits can be more easily seen.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
But in terms of your business specifically, do you face any challenges in terms of acquiring material to be able to provide that service for?
To provide, well, thanks to the IDA, we do have certain provisions that allow us to get in certain things duty-free, the material that we need for the actual manufacturing of the labels and the packaging, etc. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so Cheyenne, let's continue this segment with you. What are some of the requirements that needs to be met in terms of getting that kind of assistance that he mentioned, concessions and fiscal incentives from the IDA?
All right. Well, before I go into that, I have to say that the purpose for the concessions or the fiscal incentives is to assist the business in their production and or their operation and their establishment, or expansion as well. It allows the businesses to save in finances in hopes that they can either reinvest in the business at a much higher standard than initially intended, or to possibly hire more personnel for the proper operation of the business. Because we know a lot of businesses today have been understaffed, especially now due to this whole COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of people have been laid off. So we want to assist in helping making businesses save money and recoup money and reinvest back into their business.
Right.
Okay, so that is the purpose for it. We also have to evaluate you. So we wouldn't just provide you concessions. We want to have a discussion with you, consult with you, see who you are, what you're trying to do, determine whether or not the business model or idea itself is viable, and whether or not it would make sense to provide concessions for its operation.
Well, let me just plug in a question here.
Please do.
Does someone who has a business idea, do they come to the IDA first or do they go to the bank first? Like, would you support a local business idea and say, yes, we 100% think we would need that business? I think you should back this idea.
The fact that you would have financing from a financial institution would give us more credibility for your project, in that the bank has already assessed you and vetted you.
So bank first.
And have given you their money to do your business.
Okay.
Versus the other thing. You could do either or.
Yes.
Sometimes you go to the bank for one project, and then you come to us, and then we have a different view. And then you are like, you know what, maybe you're right, maybe I should do something else.
Right.
Either or, but it's good if you've already had your plan and everything is set and you have your finances, because that is one of our requirements on our application forms, proof of financing. Okay. So back to your question, what are some of the things that you need to apply for concessions? Now, the concessions aren't approved by Invest Dominica. We have to present them to the government of Dominica and make a case for you. Okay. But before you can apply, we want certain things. For example, if you are building a facility, your project requires you build your own production facility or operating facility. We want to see that you have approved architectural plans from the planning division. Especially after Hurricane Maria, we know that the planning division has been trying to enforce certain regulations regarding construction. So you want to make sure that your buildings are up to code and everything is set. That you also have a copy of your land title. If you own the property, or if you say you own the property, you want to make sure that you do. We don't want to encourage illegal squatting or things of that nature. If you don't own the property, we want to make sure that you have a lease. Your lease has to be at least 3 to 5 years long. Why? Because we want to make sure that when you do establish, your landlord doesn't kick you out the next year or the year after. We want to make sure that you have enough time to recoup your investment and be profitable, hopefully, so to say. Your business must be registered. You want to make sure that you are legally registered to operate in Dominica, and that you are compliant with the relevant taxes that you are expected to pay, inland revenue, as well as social security. Okay. We want to see a business plan. We want to see how you plan on being successful. We want a better understanding of what your business idea is on paper. It's one thing to sell it in person, but when it comes down to all the numbers, we want to have a view of your financial projections and things of that nature. We mentioned proof of financing. That's always good. And if you are non-Dominican, we want a copy of your work permit. That goes for employees as well as employers. As an employer, you would be able to provide a work permit for yourself as well as anybody else who is not Dominican. Okay, we spoke about inland revenue and social security, but that's these 7 requirements. This is across the board for hotels, manufacturers and agro-processors, and the services industries. These are the 3 main sectors that we service under the different pieces of legislature that we operate under. But for hotels and accommodations, they have their own distinct requirements. To apply for concessions, your business must have at least 5 units. For new projects, we want to see at least 5 units in your architectural plans. For existing...
5 units, you mean 5 rooms? When you say 5 units, 5 rooms or 5?
I can clarify.
Yes.
By a unit, what we mean is a room with its own toilet and bathroom.
Okay.
That is a standard that we want to... Not necessarily self-contained. Self-contained, according to industry standard, refers to kitchenette or kitchen and everything that you would need to live comfortably. But for Invest Dominica, once each room has its own toilet and bathroom, that's fine enough for us. The establishment can have its own restaurant or not have a restaurant at all. But at least the accommodation aspect of it is at least 5 units. Okay, with it 5 rooms with its own toilet and bathroom. And it must also operate under the tourism standards of Dominica. This would include things like having your room be a certain size or having so many exits, these sorts of things. The color of your sheets must not be printed or floral. It must all be solid colors. These are the standards of the, so some of the standards of the tourism regulations. Okay. For services enterprises, let's just say for someone like Cedric operates Campbell's Manufacturing and Campbell's Business Machines. The business machines aspect would not have to do certain things that various other service providers like water sports or restaurants would have to go through.
Okay.
So for example, a water sports service operation would have to get a water sports license, which would approve them to use our coastal waters within the certain regulations that the Fisheries, Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries has set for water sports operation. By water sports, I mean snorkeling, scuba diving, boogie boarding, jet skiing, anything that uses the coastal waters of Dominica. For restaurants and so, they will have to go get approval or at least consult the Ministry of, the Environmental Health Division. They will appraise them on what is expected of them for a restaurant. So for example, they may tell them their windows have to be screened to prevent insects and crawling, creepy crawlers crawling in. All right, your lights would have to be covered to detract flies and flying stuff from being attracted to the lights. Certain things that restaurant owners may overlook, the Ministry of, the Environmental Health Unit will appraise them on.
Yeah.
For manufacturing and agro-processing, manufacturers are advised to speak of the Bureau of Standards. They will assist with things like your packaging and your labeling. The Bureau of Standards has all the requirements for a label to access certain markets, or at least to adequately inform the customers of the product in Dominica. As well as the Environmental Health Unit, they will speak to you about waste disposal and things of that nature. For mining operations, you cannot just start to dig ground in Dominica. You have to have a license from the, I think there's a mining committee, that's what they're called. They will provide a license which allows you to mine in Dominica. Mining and quarrying, they have to get a license from those folks. So these are the requirements. I hope I didn't say too much, but these are the requirements for accessing concessions for the various industries.
From what I got, there are the basics and there are the specific according to the service industry. So we're gonna wrap up this segment. I think we have spoken about some of the concessions that are available, but when we come back we can expound a little bit more on that. So we're gonna take a break and we'll be right back.
Okay.
I love the freedom when I'm out there. Simply put, the worries from shore, none of that out there. And it's my daily bread. I learned it from my dad. My dad is one of the senior guys here who catch the biggest fish around here. And he's top with the red snappers. It's a family thing. I'm the only one fishing right now in the family. Just keeping it going. I enjoy bringing them up, man. Sometimes you have a yellowfin tuna, 400 pounds. Man, let me tell you, that's just a joy out there. I enjoy going out there and just holding the big fish. I don't lift weights, I lift fish. The morning of my fishing trip, I would get up, make a little spiced tea. Then I come down here. I have my GPS, which most fishermen are supposed to have that. Normally I prepare the day before, because whenever you're going out there, you must have ice. Ice is a must for preservation of the fish. So I always make sure I have everything the day before. My fish represents me, and I bring good quality fish ashore simply because the restaurants themselves, they have to show a quality product. Tourism and agriculture go hand in hand. That's what I think. We're all connected. It's like a big machine, and I'm just so proud to be a part of it. My name is Brandon Carlisle, and tourism is my business.
Welcome back, viewers. You've been watching a program, Invest and You, brought to you by the Invest Dominica Authority. I'm your host, Kimani St. We're here with Cedric Phillip, Managing Director of Campbell's Labeling and Packaging Company, and we also have with us from the IDA, Mr. Cheyenne Monell. So we're going to continue the conversation from where we left off, and we're going to talk about we've spoken about all the requirements necessary to get assistance from the IDA for new investments, new businesses in Dominica. Now let's talk about the slate of concessions that are available. After I've provided you with all of this information, what kind of support do I expect?
Okay, so as a hotel or accommodations, that would include guest houses, bed and breakfast, accommodations. Once you meet the minimum requirement and you have been vetted and we've decided to go ahead with your application, a hotel or accommodation can expect to get concessions like a waiver of import duty on things like hotel equipment and machinery. If they are constructing their facility, they can get building materials. Of course, they'll have to have the architectural plans. They have a restaurant, they can get restaurant equipment and machinery as well. Renewable energy equipment, because we're going green these days, we definitely encourage facilities to have at least some kind of self-sustaining energy producing facility, as well as a commercial vehicle for the transportation of equipment and produce as well. I say commercial vehicle because we classify that as a vehicle that is used for carrying a load, not necessarily for passengers.
Right.
Why? Because we want to give the taxi drivers and the tour operators the opportunity to make their money as well. Okay, so that's for hotels. For services, building materials as well, if you plan on constructing, machinery, tools, equipment, furniture, fittings, fixtures, a backup generator, renewable energy equipment, and commercial vehicles. Hotels can also get office equipment as well. Equipment, machinery, furniture, fittings, and fixtures.
And to be clear, these are concessions on these items.
Waivers of import duty,
yes,
and possibly VAT. I will explain the VAT aspect after. So for manufacturers, you can get building materials if you are building your production facility, production equipment and machinery, tools and spare parts, office equipment and machinery, furniture, fittings, fixtures, backup generators, specialized and commercial vehicles. Specialized vehicles meaning things like forklifts, front-end loaders, things of that nature, if you are into manufacturing. Not necessarily construction, but if you are into aggregates, like some of our quarries in Dominica, they will need the heavy equipment and machinery to operate. They can also, if you are a new business that has not yet commenced operating, you've just started, you've registered your business, but you haven't started operating, you are eligible to get a waiver of VAT on your imports as well. But you must have an expected revenue that meets the minimum VAT requirement. I believe it's $250,000 annually. Okay, if you fall below that, then you are not VAT registrable. Then you cannot benefit from that.
Makes sense.
Okay, we can also waive withholding tax for foreign entities to avoid the double taxation of workers and repatriation of dividends on shares and those sorts of things. Okay, you can also get a tax holiday. Tax holiday will waive the payment of corporate income tax on your profits for a period of time. That can range from 5 years to 15 to 20 years, depending on your industry. Okay, but I must say that the concessions, normally we don't grant them as a one-time. We have done that in the past on various cases, but we normally grant them for a time period. This will allow you to maximize the benefit of the concessions, that will establish. Right. Yeah. That will be based on well, the recommended time frames will be based on your investment amount, as well as the industry that you are in. Certain industries may take longer to establish than others. Certain investments may be more than others, so we'll give you more time versus someone else.
Yes.
Okay, so these are the things that we consider when granting concessions.
Right. You've spoken about a host of things in terms of support. I'm not sure if we missed anything in
I
terms
hope
of
not.
your support to the business community. I hope not. So we can, we can carry on with the conversation. So Cedric, being an experienced entrepreneur, what would you say is the biggest challenge in conducting business?
Well, in terms of our vision for what we want to do with Campbell's labeling and packaging, we needed the check in the box from the government because it was not something that we could do squarely on our own.
Right.
And the IDA came in. But one of the challenges that we had was the IDA gives you these concessions and sort of says, now go into the world and manufacture.
Yeah.
But you have to deal with other agencies.
Right.
You have to deal with the VAT office on a separate level. You have to deal with inland revenue. You have to deal with customs. And I guess depending on what you're in, you may have to deal with one or two other agencies.
Right.
And one of the challenges that we had was that there were different interpretations of different things. And at the different offices. And there was no one person who could sort of clear a way for us.
Right.
So we'd be told, okay, this is what this is and this is what this is supposed to be. And then you get to the VAT office or you get to the customs and they tell you, well, no, this is how it is.
Right.
So, if I had to give some advice to the IDA, it would be to have somebody who is empowered to clear your way through the different regulatory agencies. That was a source of grief at times.
Yeah.
You
Do
know?
you have anything to add?
Yeah.
Well, we actually do, that is part of our hand-holding facility in that if our clients have any issues, actually that's part of one of our terms and conditions in the concessions.
Right.
That any negative issues that are being experienced by the business, that you would inform us. Sometimes we cannot address it because it's out of our league.
Right.
But a lot of the times we have been able to at least shed some light or make a way for the clients, especially with other government agencies.
Right.
Sometimes the law is the law, and it cannot be changed with the stroke of a pen.
Yes, yes,
okay, and we have to go with the regulation. But there are times when we have been able to assist the client and make an exception for the continuance of operations. You know.
Yeah.
So that's one. So and in terms of dealing with with government agencies and the IDA, not wanting to cast shade on the IDA, but that was one of the challenges
Yes.
that you asked.
You're not alone.
And that was the
You're not alone.
I felt that was an opportunity for some sort of, but that was the biggest.
Yeah. Well, it's always information necessary to help get
Indeed.
better.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But so that's your challenge. You work with other businesses, small businesses, as you said. I know you spoke about one of the things that is a little bit disheartening to you is small businesses not coming together in order to maximize opportunities.
Yeah. Coming together to maximize opportunities is a win-win situation for them and to the people who provide the services and to the country as a whole.
So as startup entrepreneurs, are there other mistakes you see entrepreneurs making as someone who's experienced?
One of the things I think that most entrepreneurs think is that when you have an idea and you start working it out and it starts to work and you start sort of feeling like, master of the universe, so to speak, and you try to handle everything alone.
Right.
And a lot of times it makes sense to actually pay the value of someone on your staff who can actually, who's actually an expert at doing certain things.
Right.
And to put a lot of, to train your staff, and to put the faith in them that they can actually do what it is, and to listen to your staff.
Right.
So I would say those are typically some of the mistakes I make.
So entrepreneurs trying to do it all.
Right.
Jack of all trades.
So are there any changes you see that would allow for businesses to better be able to conduct business in Dominica? In terms of addressing some of the mistakes that you've spoken about.
The thing is, Dominica, I suppose everywhere has its peculiarities.
Right.
But remember, when you're in Dominica conducting a business, it's basically, you do it because it's a lifestyle that you love. You love serving people. We do not have the population so that you can make your millions instantly. I guess depending on the kind of business, but most businesses, so it has to be something that you love, and it has to be something that you're committed to.
Yes.
And you see the growth by increments. You see the growth by increments, and and the rewards of success will come, but you have to be patient, and you have to be at it. You have to be at it, always at it.
Right.
And that is what I would say.
Yeah.
You have to be patient, and I can never stress enough, Dominican workers are the Dominican workers will bring things to you.
Right.
And you have to put your faith in them. You have to put your faith in them.
Absolutely.
And that is the experience. Right?
Absolutely. So Cheyenne, let's talk a little bit more, and I know we've glossed over that a couple of times. COVID-19, the pandemic, the dreaded COVID-19, has brought certain challenges, but it has also created some some opportunities for the business community.
Right.
But what measures are in place by the IDA to support businesses to assist them to respond to those challenges?
Okay. I will speak on not just IDA but the government on a whole. Okay, so in recent times, we've seen that the government has approved a cabinet decision which grants a waiver of import duty and VAT to hotels and guest houses. This is to support the tourism sector and other businesses to assist with the acquisition of supplies to combat COVID-19. So this will include things like sprayers, disinfectants, cleaning chemicals, isolation gowns, soaps, first aid kits, touchless toilets and sinks, faucets, soap dispensers, the list goes on. Okay, but it's limited though.
Yeah.
And the list is limited. So this will allow businesses, as well as the hotel and tourism sector, to import these items, import and VAT duty free, up until, well, for a period of 6 months. I believe it ends in November. Yeah, so that's just one. The government has also made funding available to a number of small businesses to assist in their operations. You know that for sure. The digitalization of the economy, we've heard a lot of talk about, especially in our 2021 budget. But this will prove to be tremendous support to the need for physical social distancing. So if we can implement the digitalization of our economy, this will limit the personal movement of our citizens and people here in Dominica to restrict personal contact.
Right.
Okay. We also, especially on Invest Dominica's part, we've been trying to identify and share technical training opportunities with our clients. So through virtual formats. So instead of going to a seminar or consultation physically, we've identified a number of virtual training opportunities, and we share them with our clients so that they can empower themselves as well as their staff in the operations of their business. These are just some of the ways in which government has assisted.
Yeah. So we're going to take a short break.
Okay.
And when we come back, we will talk a little bit more about some of the opportunities that we see emerging, because even within this challenge,
Of course.
there are opportunities emerging. So we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back.
Okay.
Welcome back to Invest and You, a program brought to you by the Invest Dominica Authority. I'm your host, Kimani St. We've been having an interesting conversation here with Mr. Cedric Phillip from Campbell's Packaging and Labeling Company Limited and Mr. Cheyenne Monell from the IDA. So we're going to continue the conversation. We were speaking about COVID-19 and some of the challenges that it has presented, but also some of the opportunities.
Okay.
So let's talk about some of the opportunities to see emerging.
Okay. We can see some interest in the ICT sector because with the COVID-19 pandemic, we want to promote a lot of social distancing, staying at home and those sorts of things, 6 feet of separation. So this is a huge opportunity for the ICT sector. Data entry processing. I know a lot of the folks who are at our data entry processing facility at Clare Harbour, they are at home right now, still working, still being very productive. However, that industry allows them to do that sort of thing. Okay, it will be harder for I would say someone who is involved in a more hands-on hotel.
You can serve a drink virtually.
Okay, so this is one opportunity. The agro-processing of natural cleaning and hygiene products. Okay.
Yes, recently I saw, I'm not sure if it existed before, but I saw a coal pot hand sanitizer.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I've also seen a lot of other hand sanitizers online and on TV that incorporate the use of the essential oils and other natural ingredients. Okay.
Well, yeah. One of the things that I've seen as well is sort of a look inward, instead of looking overseas, we're now looking inward at the things that can be done. How many people now are doing backyard gardening? How many people now are interested in locally produced products? So that definitely. And in terms of what you were saying, and relating it to the question you asked me earlier about the mistakes that entrepreneurs make. One of the mistakes that they make is not doing enough in terms of the automation of their companies, in terms of information, digitization of the company, in terms of using the technology, digital technology, to manage operations and so on. And as small as a company is, it is always a good idea to begin that process.
Absolutely.
Invest in technology. So
yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of businesses probably realized that they don't necessarily need that extra overhead for that space.
Right. I mean, one of the biggest things, and people don't really realize it, is just the management of documents. If you wait till you become a medium-sized or large company to do that, it's going to cost thousands, sometimes millions.
It's time-consuming as well.
But if you start it from the time you begin, to start managing your documentation and so on, using technology, then you know that culture is going to save you a lot of money.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Thank you, Cedric. We also see opportunities in the health and wellness sector. People want to stay healthy. People want to stay well. So you will see opportunities in that regard. Tourism services. We have no idea as to when it will subside, but once it does, and tourism starts to get its boom once more,
Yes.
you will see the need for a lot of complementary tourism services, restaurants, water sports, adventure tours, those sorts of things.
Right.
Okay, so stay tuned for that in that regard. Okay.
What about entertainment?
Entertainment. Currently our entertainment sector is being affected.
Yes.
Severely.
But think of, for example, what Carly XP
is doing,
and certain
yes.
other people are doing. So that is another way where we're actually
Yes.
See
looking
an opportunity.
inward
Yeah.
to see that, you know, we some time ago there was the buzzword of a music industry
Right.
in Dominica, and then we were also talking about, Dexia was talking about an art industry. Now those things are sort of bubbling up to the surface.
So more or less we can see the opportunity for the merging of sectors,
Right.
ICT or implementing the technology to have the presentation of the industries and everything else virtually. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah, that is an opportunity.
Absolutely. So let's talk about now the IDA's response to its service provision and investment promotion and facilitation, even amidst all these challenges.
Okay.
with the pandemic.
Well, when the SRO came out that we would be having curfews and everything else, initially our office was closed to the general public, but we were still operating, so to say. So normally part of our we welcome walk-ins, we welcome folks with business ideas off the street. You don't need appointment to walk in and just have a consultation with us. We had to stop that because, of course, the fear of anybody coming in and spreading. So our office was closed, but we still operated remotely. At times we had staggered staff. Staff would come in, take turns every other day, that sort of thing. As well as we did a survey to all of our clients to determine how the pandemic was affecting their operations. Some businesses were not affected. Some businesses were completely affected. Okay, so we were able to take the information that we got from the survey, their revenue, how much staff they lost, if at all, to make recommendations to the government of Dominica to assist the private sector. Okay. We've also identified a lot of, well, we are still in the process of identifying technical training for our clients. We know that in this time, now is the time to beef up your operations. Most businesses, if not all businesses here in Dominica have lost revenue in the past few months. So now is the time to double up, so to say, in order to come back and reclaim the revenue that you lost, to rehire the people that you lost, and to do that you may have to do certain changes, whether it's bookkeeping or learning how to register your intellectual property, those sorts of things. More or less technical aspects of doing business to assist in your operations. We've also worked with select producers to develop products that can naturally prevent the spread of COVID. Well, that's what we're trying to do right now. Hopefully we're trying to collaborate with some of our manufacturers, the bigger ones, the Jollies, the essential oils and those sorts of folks, to possibly see how we can develop products to fight COVID-19. Yeah.
Okay. That's good. That's great. Not just hand sanitizers, but...
Well, It can be disinfectants, it could be hand sanitizers, it could be a host of products. Of course, Invest Dominica wouldn't be the ones doing the producing,
absolutely.
but we want to see how we can form collaborations.
Yes.
Or at least, if not collaborations, assist with the respective businesses for the development of those products.
Okay, so do you have a message that you want to, leave with businesses already established or potential investors?
Well, despite the pandemic, as we've seen, Dominica is very resilient in that regard. It's not a natural disaster, but it's just as impactful, as we can see. But Dominica has remained resilient. We're still open, very much open for business. Visitors, our borders are open, and we see some visitors coming in, even though we have mixed feelings about that.
Yes. A lot of returning Dominicans to see their families.
Yes. But IDA continues to be the one-stop shop for investment facilitation information. And we also want to encourage the viewers and the listeners to invest. Now may not be a good time to invest in a business.
Right.
Depending on the type of business that you are, okay, and your financial constraints.
Right.
But at least you can invest in your communities. Now is a time where we need to come together as communities for our progress, and also invest in yourselves. Invest in yourselves. A lot of us have free time on our hands, so instead of getting into other things, now is a good time to develop yourself intellectually, at least, or learn a skill or something of the sort. So that's more or less my message.
Wonderful. We want to thank our viewers for joining us on Invest and You. Before we leave, I just want to give each of our guests, Mr. Cedric Phillip and Mr. Cheyenne Monell, an opportunity to round off and say something that you want people to remember, whether it's about your business or whether it's about the support from the IDA.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank the IDA for the support over the past couple of years. They were there, interested in what was going on with us after Hurricane Maria. They were there, interested in what was going on with us from the start of the pandemic. And resilience, yes. I don't want to say it's an overused word, but a lot of times, a lot of people don't exactly know what we're talking about when we say resilience.
Right.
So I'd say independence. That we set ourselves up so that we can do things on our own, and that independence creates our resilience.
Right.
That we can develop industries in Dominica that they won't be immune to the vagaries, but they won't change the way that we live, the way that we do our business so much when these things happen. So we need to spread the word, to grow what we eat what we grow.
Yes.
Use the things that we have locally to sort of create our livelihood, our revenue, so that when these things happen, we can continue to exist and even thrive if we're sort of cut off.
Indeed.
Excellent.
So and that would be the basis of any kind of national development.
Excellent.
And like Cheyenne said, continue to develop yourself, continue to study, continue to learn. And that applies for business as well as anything else. It's a work in progress.
Wonderful. Cheyenne?
Thank you, Cedric. Just encourage business-minded folks, whether you have already invested or you want to expand your business or you're thinking of investing, to consider Invest Dominica as your first stop for the right information to guide you on your investment. Thank you.
Short and sweet. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being here today. I'm sure our viewers were able to get, quite a bit of information that will assist them, whether they're thinking about investing or whether you were wondering what really is the Invest Dominica Authority about, and also to, get more information on Campbell's packaging and labeling company. So if you have a small business that you want, great packaging for, then you can definitely contact Campbell Labeling and Packaging Company. I'm not sure if you just want to give some contact information.
Well, you can get in touch with us at campbellsdominica@gmail.com, or you can contact me, cedric@campbells.dm. And essentially what we do in addition to doing the labeling and packaging, we also provide electronic office products, and we also do things such as signage. We print artwork and photography and so on, sort of museum quality on different substrates, including canvas. So
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here today, gentlemen, and thank you to our viewers for joining us on Invest and You. Until next time, I'm Kimani St. Thank you so much for watching.